Hello, everybody. Welcome again to Rich Summit. We're super excited to have you. I see that there's a lot of people here, so thank you for joining from all over the world. My name is Fernando. I'm head of marketing at Privado, and we're ready to start with privacy as a brand differentiator with Rob and Panel. So happy to get that going for you.
Thank you, Hernando. And it's a pleasure to be moderating this first panel at Privado's Bridge Summit. I'm Robert Bateman. I am a privacy and data protection writer and trainer and other data protection related roles. And well, we all care about privacy and data protection from a human rights perspective, I hope, but businesses tend to care most about shareholders and profit margins and those sorts of things. So we're going to look at how privacy can impact those and elevate a brand beyond perhaps its less scrupulous competitors. So I'm joined by some people who are putting this into practice, moving beyond the scare tactics of kind of fines, and really helping their companies engage with privacy in a positive way. Joining me today, I've got Dr. Emilie Kuljit, who is a data protection officer at AppsFlyer, George Jones, who's a senior data privacy specialist at Zoominfo, and Conor Hogan, who is global director of privacy at BSI Group. I'll just ask you each to briefly introduce yourselves, please. Tell me a bit about who you are and what you do. Could I start with you, please, Emilie?
Sure. So I'm Emilie Kuljit. Nice to meet everyone who's joining, morning, evening, nighttime, wherever you are. I'm AppsFlyer's DPO, Data Protection Officer. We're a global company working inside and side of the MarTech industry, and we work with a lot of companies that create apps. So privacy is a very big thing for us, and I came to AppsFlyer after having worked in privacy for years as an external consultant, having worked with a lot of tech companies. So and come from a background of human rights, come to privacy as a human rights specialist. So what Robert was saying is very, very true for me also.
Thank you, Emilie. Great to have you with us. Conor, could I go to you next, please?
Sure. Thanks, Robert. And it's a pleasure to be here and really looking forward to a day of exciting conversations. As you mentioned, Robert, I'm with the BSI Group, the British Standards Institution, and I lead out on our privacy advisory and consultancy services. So very similar to maybe your background, Emilie, but also I sort of wear the in-house DPO hat as well here for our operations globally, which, as many people may know, are quite broad. We operate across the assurance markets, providing certification to clients of various management systems. We also originate and develop standards within the UK market and contribute to the development of standards internationally as a member of the ISO working groups. And we are also a notified body under the medical device regulation and soon to be an AI notified body under the EU AI Act, as well as having a consulting division that helps organizations across the world manage compliance and manage the challenges of environmental health and safety, sustainability, supply chain, and all things digital trust, including privacy as well. So my background is information security, IT audit, assurance, and indeed privacy, and really looking forward to participating today. Thanks, Robert.
Thanks, Conor. It's a very broad range of expertise there, so I'm sure you can share some great advice and experience with our audience. George, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Robert. Nice to meet you all. I'm George. I'm a senior data privacy specialist at Zoominfo. Zoominfo is a business data company. Essentially, we help go-to-market teams find and acquire customers, as well as grow their existing customer base through the sort of access to our database and tooling that we have. My background professionally, I've been at Zoominfo for about 18 months now. Previously, I was a European data protection officer for another US tech company. And before that, I worked at the Data and Marketing Association in the UK, which is a large trade body that helps advise businesses from across a large range of different sort of sectors on privacy, data protection, and all things marketing. So yeah, super excited to talk on this today.
Thanks so much to each of you. And well, I'd like to start just by adding a bit of your own personal experience. If I could ask you about your journey in your current role, think about when you joined the company and what you've helped do to improve privacy throughout your tenure. Anything you're particularly proud of, you can highlight, and just any changes that you've implemented, to boost privacy in your company. Maybe we could start with Emilie for that one.
Sure, no problem. Thanks, Robert. Well, I think that's a very interesting question, also from the perspective of seeing the growth in the privacy landscape in the past few years. So I joined AppsFlyer about 3 years ago, and privacy was already a very big topic within the company, but I was the first full-time DPO to join the company. Until then, ownership of privacy was in different departments: legal, security, etc. So this was the first time that we said privacy is going to have its own hat. We're going to have a DPO. We're going to start building the privacy team. We're going to start creating a privacy entity, if you will, which is something that really creates quite a new path within a company. It takes a while to get that ownership and to start understanding which teams were wearing which caps, and to bring all of that into one hat under myself, as well as also to market internally what it is that a DPO does and why we have a full-time DPO now. And I think that that's something that a lot of companies have gone through in the past few years, as privacy has come into a sense of maturity, that not just the huge corporations have a team, but that every middle and small company is also getting to that stage. And what support is key here is, in my opinion, both top-down and bottom-up support, because you, of course, need top-down support. As a DPO, you have a distinct role to have a communication and a direct line of communication, at least under European privacy regulation with the C-level, of course. But doing without bottom-up support is very hard also, as you're starting, in particular when you're one of the first privacy hires in a company, as you're starting out and as you're building your way. Now, I was very lucky to not be the first privacy hire, of course, but to be the first full-time DPO, where already that had been established. And my experience has been very much that this journey over the past year, as privacy legislation matures and as awareness grows, the companies that were a bit privacy wary have also embraced privacy more. And I've joined a company that was already very privacy wise, and I've had the opportunity to work on that internal marketing, if you will, if we can call it like that, to really create that sense of embracement in all the teams, to create a sense of understanding in all the teams. And part and parcel with that for me is definitely having engagement with all the teams separately, to hold different training sessions for R&D and product teams than for HR and finance teams, to really provide that special attention and that tweaked attention also to these different departments, to make sure that we meet everyone in their need and to be able to provide advice to everyone in their needs. And I think that is a journey. I think that that's a process that a lot of companies go through, and that's definitely something that we feel very strongly about. And definitely what Deborah also mentioned earlier about shifting privacy left, that's a sense of ownership that comes when you really bring in full-time privacy teams that are able to spend time with product and R&D as products and services are developed in most companies, to make sure that really no left turns are taken where they don't need to be taken, and that privacy is part of the road every step of the way. So that's definitely something that I would say that has been crucial in the past years.
So we're talking about using privacy to promote a brand, but you mentioned there the idea of kind of marketing privacy internally, to colleagues, getting everyone on board, taking them along with you on the kind of journey. Fantastic. Thank you.
It takes a village, right? Isn't that right, Robert? It takes a village. And that village allows everyone in the company to bring that privacy as a brand out. It allows salespeople to bring it out. It allows product people to bring it out. It allows everyone there to embrace that spirit.
So representing privacy not as a kind of roadblock, but as a business enabler, as we often say, internally can help to embed that into your company. Maybe I could turn to Conor next. Your role is a little bit different then, I suppose, from George and Emilie here, Conor. So tell me a bit about, how you've helped to integrate privacy into your own company or into others in your kind of advisory role.
Sure. So I'm with BSI now nearly 6 years. I suppose when I joined, our consulting business was relatively new, the suite of sort of business lines that BSI is traditionally been known for. And I mean, even as the national standards body in the UK, our role has been underpinned by Royal Charter in the UK since the early 1920s. And, it's an important role that BSI plays. And it was actually a big part of why I chose to join this organization. There's a sense of purpose and a sense of independence really that is underpinned by that Royal Charter that spoke to me as a privacy and data protection professional. And the type of work that Royal Charter and really the brand that sits behind BSI enables me to do is very much aligned with what Emilie was mentioning there with regard to, it takes a village, and it absolutely does take a village. I don't know what other people's experience is, but I think, a DPO can be a very lonely place on occasion, especially when clients or indeed your internal stakeholders view it as the, quote unquote, no police. No, you can't do that. No, what are you doing with that piece of data? Why would you engage that contractor or that external third party without talking to us? And very quickly it's about, I think, especially as a consultant, and when I'm working with my team to embed privacy by design concepts, capabilities within our clients, or to educate and advocate for privacy and data protection being thought of upfront in that, shifting privacy laws like that. Or even just, responding to queries that our clients have. It's about making it accessible. And for me, especially in that external role that I play a lot of the time with our clients, it's about being that subject matter expert, but also being that friendly face that helps them understand and translate what, for whatever reason, have become complex, like legalistic texts that say, you have to do X, Y, and Z. But actually, what does that mean in practice? So translating it into the real world of what it means contextually for that organization in that industry. But critically for me, to something that aligns with their maturity as well. So, you're not trying to boil the ocean, right? Adopting that risk-based approach that many international laws now at board require, because it's the right thing to do. And then, if I take off my external sort of consulting hat and I put on my internal DPO hat that I hold, it's something similar, right? It's just, it's almost exactly the same role, just my clients or my stakeholders are within my organization. And one of the questions you asked earlier, Robert, just in the opening section was, what are we most proud of? Well, actually, I think what we've been able to achieve, very similar to what Emilie was saying with regard to, the decision to appoint a DPO, right? We're lucky I'm lucky that I find myself in a team of very capable and competent and privacy professionals, both internally and in the external facing team. And BSI took a decision to appoint a DPO, which is maybe a little unusual that we had to take that decision, but up until maybe some changes in senior management, privacy was that sort of, we've got our GDPR policy and, we satisfy that, we've got transparency notices and we have cookies and all that sort of it. But actually, setting ourselves apart, even marking our own homework and being able to sell our services as the experts and the independent, the purpose-driven organization that we are, we need to do things right. Not because a piece of legislation says so, but actually fundamentally it's the right thing to do. And I completely subscribe to that. And so I think the thing I'm most proud of as the DPO for the group today is that we've affected a change in the culture internally. we've got people coming to us from different parts of the business saying, hey, what do I need to do when I want to do this? Or, especially now with the advent of AI and new technologies, how can we do this rather than I just need you to sign this off because I've been told that it's a check the box requirement in our program documentation. So for me, that's the biggest and most proud thing I think I have internally within the organization. And then taking off my internal hat and putting back on my sort of consultant hat. That's what I try to do with all of my clients, is to affect change, that cultural change, that shift, of, well, actually this can be something we can grasp hold of and make it a fundamental part of how we do business today. And then we can demonstrate that, because I think that's a huge enabler in the digital era that we're now in. And digital trust, for instance, is talked about as being a big focus area. And for me, privacy data compliance are huge constituents.
So Conor, you have to, you feel you have to practice what you preach, I suppose, because you've got both
Precisely.
the internal and external roles, and to be taken seriously as advisors, you have to be putting this stuff in place yourselves. George, you operate in quite a sensitive sort of space, I suppose. I have mentioned to you, I once got a notice from Zoominfo that I was quite impressed by. There are similar companies that don't do such things. So tell me a bit about your role there and how you've seen things change since you started.
Yeah, I mean, Zoominfo is really unique. It's a data company at its core, right? We collect and process business contact data from millions and millions of people around the globe, and we make that available to our customers. So of course that comes with privacy challenges, not just unique to GDPR, CCPA and other sort of global frameworks and laws that apply across the globe, but also down to the local level as well, right? E-privacy requirements in different countries mean that how our customers can use that data changes based on where they're going to market or where they're looking to approach. And this was a gap for Zoominfo. We had information available. We had great expertise internally, but we didn't have any way to help our customers navigate this. And that's sort of what I was brought on board for. So we're very lucky. We have very good buy-in from senior leadership. We have Keith Embright, who's Google's chief privacy officer, on our board of directors. Our chief compliance officer is Simon McDougall, who used to be a deputy commissioner at the ICO. Our CEO is very hot on privacy. Our whole board buy into this. So we didn't have that challenge of it being an organizational focus. It always has been, and it always will be. But what we needed to do was translate that sort of top-down approach that we went for traditionally and help that run through to the sales teams and the go-to-market teams on the ground. So making sure we're equipping our sales teams to help our customers navigate these conversations, help them build a go-to-market strategy, which is what we're doing on a daily basis, but one that bears in mind these local laws and considerations across places like Europe, right? Going to market in Germany is completely different to going to market in the UK, especially in cold outbound situations. And that was one challenge that I set out to solve. Also, Zoominfo's key in terms of how we sell our products is speed to close. We want deals to close fast because that's our limiting factor. Our products are sort of sector leading, right? The products are very easy to sell. The thing that slows our sales teams down is the time these deals sometimes take to get through. And privacy can be a major roadblock for customers who are buying data for the first time. If it's something an organization hasn't navigated before, they have a lot of questions. So having internal expertise available to go and talk to customers, put minds at ease, run through, even if they had to do a privacy impact assessment or something, just having a team available to navigate those conversations directly with customers helps reduce the burden on the sales teams. And again, top down, bottom up, as you said earlier, Emilie, is key here. We're very good at the top down. We're now building functionality for the bottom up. We're training these sellers to have privacy related conversations. We're making sure they have resources available. They can get access to our team at the click of a button. Will come in sort of like a privacy SWAT team is what we've been described as internally. So we roll in, we will answer a couple of questions around data protection and privacy, and then the deal will move forward. And that's exactly what we want this to look like. We don't want to be a blocker. We don't want to put up any barriers. We just want to make this as seamless as we can.
If I can just Robert, if I can,
Go ahead.
I love flagging that Conor and George, you both said we don't want to be the blocker. We don't want to be the no team, and we don't want to be the blocker. And I think I love that approach because it's interesting and it's exactly what I do. And I would also love to hear that from the audience. When we're in-house, when you're on the internal aspect of it all, you want to move things forward. You want to say, what do you want to achieve in the end, and how can we get you there? And I think that that's such a key thing to note here. And I think also that's one of the biggest pluses of saying, okay, I want privacy to be a positive part of a company. I want privacy to be embedded in everything. But I'll stop myself here.
Yeah, 100% agree. And again, it's if our sales reps trust our processes in terms of privacy, so if our teams that are on the ground selling the product believe in the privacy program that we have, when these questions come up, just the fact that they're confident to talk on it puts minds at ease throughout the sales cycle. If they're talking to a chief technology officer and privacy comes up and they're not very comfortable and they're a little bit hesitant to answer questions, that could raise more red flags and slow the deal down even further. So it really is about making that comfort available to the sales teams, giving them the training, resources, even a team to go in and navigate these very tricky conversations, especially moving up market, which I know a lot of organizations are trying to do, right? Landing bigger deals, higher sort of profile customers. These questions will come up. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So if we get them out of the way early, and everybody hates that last minute trying to get the deal closed at the end of the month, all of a sudden we've got 10 more questions on privacy. If we're proactive and we get them dealt with at the start of the sales cycle, everything just moves quicker.
Good. So I've heard a lot then about kind of ensuring any external facing team members are confident in selling that aspect of your company or your product, and building that foundation among, the whole of the organization, linking up teams and ensuring everyone's on the same page with regards to privacy. And also this shift in left idea that I'm sure will come up a lot today, really integrating privacy into all parts of your systems and practices. Now, what are you hearing from your customers? I guess you're all B2B type organizations, but do feel free to add anything about what your customers are hearing as well. Your consumers, as it were. Do you think there has been a shift in attitudes in recent years, and how has that manifested? Would anyone like to go first on that one?
I would be happy to. I think the maturity of our customers has shifted, right? And the industry in general has shifted. It's become a lot more mature. I think at first the rush through GDPR compliance was, let's get a framework built. Let's make sure we have our policies and procedures in line. We're at the point now where the audit functions are up and running. We've got like accountability frameworks. We have reviews going on quite often. And I think that's great because it allows us to have those conversations and clear up any misconceptions, make sure that our collateral is fit for purpose. And I think that's what I've noticed. I've noticed our older customers coming back and saying, oh, can we check through how you approach Article 14 notification, or just really getting into the details. And that's great to see. It's not just a tick box exercise like people from outside of our industry believe it to be. And that's a shift that's very positive in my opinion.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like my customers, some of whom are in, the tech industry, from startups and scale ups through to more mature organizations, especially I'm thinking about maybe some of my retail customers and sort of consumer technology related customers, even pharmaceuticals and more so in the healthcare sector. I think in general, society at large is an awful lot more aware of the choices that they have, so with the euro or that dollar or pound in their pocket, like where they want to spend it. And, I think the end consumer, the general, citizen today is a lot more savvy about, they may not necessarily be able to quote Article 14, Article 15, Article 25 is GDPR, but actually, they're concerned, and rightly so, like where their data goes and who gets access to it, ultimately who might be selling it on, for what purposes, how safe and secure it is, right? And fundamentally, they're they're the principles of any modern privacy law. Like that they're the principles of, and the accountability that those modern laws place on organizations. Yes, to have paperwork in place and have the governance in place, but actually, it's about the protection of fundamental rights, and it's about the protection of people's data fundamentally. And you can't get away from that. Consumers, buyers, the supply chain questions that George mentioned. I think all of that just shows an increasing level of knowledge and critically expectation in the marketplace, whether you're a consumer is the target or whether it's a commercial relationship that you're looking to close. And privacy is now square in the crosshairs of not just the corporates and the supply chain due diligence, but actually the consumer on the high street as well. Because let's not forget, they read, as we all do, breaches here, breaches there, public sector, private sector, tech company this find, tech company that find, or under investigation. And so it's now everywhere. And for me, that's fantastic because it's becoming mainstream. And if you can get it right, and if you, in the context of who your customers are, land the right message, say, actually, we do this as part of how we do business, part of our DNA. If we're going to take your data, these are the reasons why. This is what we're going to do with it. We're not going to do anything else with it. We're going to keep it as safe and secure as we possibly can. If there's a problem, we'll talk to you and the regulators about it. But ultimately, trust us. And that trust is something that organizations throughout time immemorial have sought to build. And, there's a great quote. I think it's the CEO of ServiceNow references it on occasion to say the trust is built in drops and lost in buckets. And it doesn't even take an actual problem. It can be just, somebody somewhere picking up something incorrectly. And that can, as we all know, fake news and its rise of deep fakes, for instance, now, how quickly bad news can become, and the wrong, incorrect news can become the de facto position or the main point of focus in the marketplace today as well. So privacy is now, I feel, mainstream. It's square in the crosshairs of the people who are taking buying decisions, either corporate or at the personal consumer level, because it's such an integral part of how we do business, how we engage in society, and how we actually carry on in our daily lives today.
Yeah, I think one area in particular, Emilie, where I think consumers are more conscious about, what's happening to their data is on mobile apps. So that's highly relevant to you. So what have you seen? How have you seen this change over recent years?
I think you make a very good point, and I think that that's definitely the case. And I want to add to Conor and George, and I'm seeing a lot of what you both are saying, the fine line between awareness and wariness of what's happening with the data. And Robert, as for where I'm sitting, with AppsFlyer, our tech stack we've got SDKs, we've got APIs. They're in about well over 90% of all mobile phone users around the globe. So we really reach everyone everywhere, if you will, which is of course that sense of responsibility, where as the DPO, you always need to keep in mind that you're protecting the end user, the data subject, the customer's customer. And you're there to make sure that you're still in line with the law and keeping everyone on the right track. And I see a vast increase in questions coming from customers, not just about, what about the GDPR? Because everyone knows the GDPR. But as we are more and more global, we've got companies and even smaller companies that reach various continents. And how do you as a small company make sure that you are privacy aligned with a lot of different legislations around the globe? That's a lot of work. And how do you go about doing that? And you need to be able to trust your third parties and your vendors. And then we get back to the word trust. How do we make sure that we build that trust? How do we make sure that we enable that trust of our customers? And I think that that's something that, and then again, we come back to this notion of human rights. To me, there's a very clear connection between International Data Privacy Day, which is on the 28th of the month following Holocaust Memorial Day, which is on the 27th of the month, where human rights law was mostly born and written after 1945, of course, as we know, with Article 8, the European Convention with the right of a private life. And that is something that we need to keep in mind, that we go with the maturity of the internet. In the 1990s, it was this booming wave and everyone was willing to put a lot of their information online. We saw the same right now in the AI era, if you will, where a lot of consumers are putting a lot of themselves online until they realize the backlash. So there is this fine line between awareness and wariness. And I see this with the customers as well, because they feel the responsibility for their users. They have that responsibility, whereas my company may be working B2B. All my customers are B2C. So how do I take on that responsibility, and how do I make sure that I embody that trust and I am able to present that trust to them? And I think that that has a lot to do with how I embed privacy into my products and how we as a company embed everything into our product and how I'm able to present that. And a lot of that is about how do I present myself as a company and what am I putting out there? So one of the things that I found very important was being able to communicate, and the way we use the language and the way that we are clear and straightforward with what we do. So a lot of the information as far as AppsFlyer goes, you'll be able to simply find on our website. But this massive privacy hub, you've got collateral on all the legislation, the major legislation, obviously not all the legislation, but a lot of the major privacy legislations out there. How does that work with us? What do you do? Because when you're in the mobile sphere, as a lot of companies are, you need to also work not just with the regulators and the law, but also with a lot of the major companies that operate in these spheres. Everyone works either with an iPhone or with an Android phone, and there's a lot of different regulations going around also in that end. Yeah. So there's this technical need, and as well as this legislative need, and how do you go about embedding that into all of your products, and how do you make sure that you communicate all of that? And what I've seen is really there hasn't been a single product within our company developed in the last 3 years that did not have privacy at the center of its focus. There has not, since I obviously cannot speak to what has happened before I joined the company, but what I can say is that since I've been here, there has not been a product or a feature developed that wasn't trying to be more privacy minded, privacy savvy, privacy focused. And I think that that's the goal that we all need to be aiming for.
Now look, we've only got between 5 and 10 minutes, let's say, left. So I did want to address a couple of audience questions. One of them is actually relevant, very relevant to what you're just saying there, Emilie. I'll paraphrase. Moving towards a kind of privacy by design, privacy as a product model is the word, is the phrase the question uses. Does that slow things down among product development teams? And can you if so, is there a return nonetheless on that slower process? I suppose you should start, Emilie, but I'd like to get your name before the end.
Yeah, I'll keep it very brief. So to me, privacy by design and privacy by default go hand in hand. I'll take our platform as example. Customers go into the platform. Everything is privacy by default. That means if I wish to share data with another individual, if I need to do this or that, I, as the customer, specifically need to be the one that does that, presses that button, moves that toggle, etc. So that to me is something that, as you design, you need to always make sure that you think one step ahead. Who am I designing for? What are their needs? Maybe they're working in California. Maybe they're working in Brazil. What's going on the other side of the spectrum? Who is my audience? What am I dealing with? The other side is privacy by design. Now, privacy by design should be the opposite of slowing development down. It should speed development up, because if you take privacy by design and you bring in the privacy team at the beginning of the development cycle, they will be able to guide you in your product development so as that you do not get halted at the end of the story 9 months in, learning that actually it wasn't such a good idea to develop X, Y, and Z and to collect more data than was absolutely necessary. So once you bring that to the front, you are actually you're streamlining your products, you are branding your company better because you're selling a product that makes a lot more sense in 2024, and you're being smarter about it.
Good. So you can avoid false starts and roadblocks later down the line, which ultimately could speed things up. Anyone else like to chip in on that one? Privacy by design and integrating privacy from the very start. George
Yeah.
or Conor?
Yeah, I think the challenge is to integrate it in a way that makes sense for your business, right? Because, think of like DevSecOps, or even just SecOps, right? That there's no necessarily templated or predefined manner by which those types of operations. And similarly, it's the same for privacy by design and default or privacy engineering. Every organization is different. And, I remember pre-GDPR, the soon to be former commissioner at the Irish Data Protection Commission, Helen Dixon, went on a big campaign of context is king. And it's resonated and still, resonates around to my brain because, you can have the most fantastic privacy engineering workflow design and it falls flat on its face. You can have the most amazing privacy by design and default process using the Galopian principles as referenced in the question. And it will create nothing but roadblocks. It has to be tailored to the needs of the organization, to the risk profile and the risk appetite of the organization, the technical environment, but also then the maturity of the privacy capabilities that the organization has. Now you have to start somewhere, and ideally you start at the very start. And you identify where risks might be. Maybe you decide to use privacy threat modeling to get a good picture of exactly what is outside of your risk appetite. And then you break it down into manageable chunks, engaging with the in-house privacy team if it's there, the compliance function, InfoSec, using those resources that you have internally and leveraging any external supports that you need as well. But for my money, there's no standardized approach here. So, breaking things down into the privacy as a product model, to answer the question directly, does it empower product and design teams? Absolutely. I think what we need to do as privacy people and privacy folks is move into the space much more aggressively that engineers and developers inhabit. Speak their language, talk to them in processes and in approaches that make sense to them and align with. We need to bring privacy down into the weeds, and then we can work together to make sure that we make things as agile and as smooth and as efficient as possible. And the last thing I'll say is you're not going to avoid roadblocks, but you will minimize their impact on things. So there will be opportunities for people to argue and for problems to arise. That happens. It's natural. This is the world of business. But if you get it right in your context, it can be a huge differentiator in terms of, pace to market from idea to release and to ultimately to monetize whatever it is you're trying to monetize and be successful. And so as a differentiator, if you get that right, people will want to buy your product or service. People will want to work with you. Your reputation is copper fastened. You will make things easier internationally as you look to expand globally. Good. And you will minimize compliance and regulatory risk. So I think it's a win.
Good. Thank you, Conor. That is a key theme, of course, of today, hence the name Bridge Summit, joining up the thinking between particularly those two types of employee and team. George, I'm going to ask you a very important question. We're actually overrunning slightly, so I'd like you to all comment on this very briefly. How could you actually see this approach reflected in terms of ROI or profit? Is it measurable? Have you seen it work like that? How do we make this real?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question and something that we have racked our brain about a lot within Zoominfo. So my team is customer facing directly, customer and investor facing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So proving our value is something that we've worked on a lot, and we track based on the engagements that we have. So we record when we have any interactions with customers, if we have a call or work on a specific piece of collateral specifically for a customer. And then we attribute that to the size of the deal. So we actually take a dollar amount and then we work with the sales team to attribute how much of that we can say is down to our support, right? Would the deal have got across the line without the privacy team stepping in and helping push this in the right direction? And then we sort of take a value from that and claim it as our own, so to speak, put our flag on it. And that seems to work really, really well. And it helps us go to our leadership team and say, look, we've worked across X million dollars worth of accounts this year, and this is how much value we feel like we have added. And that was
very tangible
really useful
sort of measurement then, George. And that again goes back to this idea of selling privacy internally as well as externally. I'm afraid I've got to wrap up very soon, but if either of you, George or Emilie, have a 10, 20-second response to that very complicated question, please do go ahead. Finish.
I just want to say, George, very tangible, excellent idea. Obviously does not translate to the role of a DPO, that dealing with the sales processes. But why? One of the things that's very interesting, what is sometimes possible, one of the products that we launched is showing customers comparative in their field. This is what other customers in your field are doing with privacy preserving methods. This is what you may be wanting to do also. So also again, selling privacy as an option on how to be more edgy and more savvy in your field in order to enhance protection for the end user.
Excellent. Thank you. And Conor, final word might have to literally be a word because we're just finishing. Do you think that this can be reflected in a company's ROI and profit margins?
Profit margins, yes. ROI, yes. I think it's going to come down to what you define as those metrics, right? And whether the number of breaches, the number of DSARs that you've met, the number of, regulatory requests that you've been able to satisfy, the number of investigations perhaps that you haven't been subject to. I suppose the absence of evidence isn't necessarily evidence itself. So it's really going to come down, I think, more meaningfully to customer retention, brand reputation, and maybe some more, maybe more intangibles, in my perspective. And I think you only have to look at the very, very top of the world's tech stacks and the tech orgs today. There's a couple of $3 billion market cap companies in the world today. One of them has put privacy firmly at the center of their brand, their markets. And without naming them, I think it's fair to say you can definitely evidence return on investment and profitability there.
That's a good example. We won't plug other companies in the session, but I think I know who you mean. Thank you so much to all three of you. Some really great insights there. And really my takeaway is selling privacy internally, bringing people along with you, integrating it into the core of your company. So I'll hand back to Hernando now to bring us to the next session.
Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you, everybody.